The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, go Cowboys! This is the Cowboys Nation podcast with instant reactions and analysis to breaking news and events in Cowboys Nation.
The saga of the summertime is over. Micah Parsons has officially been traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Green Bay Packers in return for one player, and that player is Kenny Clark, defensive tackle from the Packers, and 2 first-round picks. The Packers then agreed to a 4-year, $188 million contract, $136 million of that guaranteed, to continue their services with Micah Parsons as one of the biggest and brightest names in all of the National Football League, no longer employed by the Cowboys. This is the Dallas Cowboys Nation podcast. Patrick Nosey-Walker, Tommy Arish, Mickey Spagnola. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Matt Kent is running everything in the back. And this news coming down about 30 minutes ago or so, and we've had to wait until terms were discussed and the contract was final and that the word was out there. But there was a little bit of buzz in the building really from early this morning, Patrick, that this could possibly happen. But it's really a culmination of a significant amount of time, and Micah Parsons is no longer a Cowboy.
It is. It's unfortunately also a culmination of pride versus pride. No pun intended when speaking about the Lion. But this harkens back, and Tommy did a great timeline piece on the Micah saga that's on DallasCowboys.com. Make sure you check that out. And it basically just details how things devolved over the past several months. This is a situation wherein not even a year ago, Micah Parsons was talking about just how much he loved Jerry Jones and vice versa. And they were buddy-buddy, and they were at the Cotton Bowl together, and they were enjoying some hot dogs, and all was hunky-dory. Micah Parsons went as far as saying he wanted to be a Cowboy forever. Everything looked and smelled great. Things completely fell off of the map. The wheels started to fall off when the agent was not involved. And then Micah chose to, at that point, Micah said, hey, I want to negotiate nothing further without my agent present and involved in the conversations. Jerry Jones felt as if, very vocally, felt that he had a deal, a handshake deal with Micah Parsons, and he was not willing to entertain renegotiating a new deal with his agent. So from there, you have the trade request that came out of the asteroid belt and landed on Earth. And, of course, at that point, any one of us, and all of us, particularly Kyle, Nikki, we've all seen ugly negotiations. We've seen DeMarcus Lawrence weaponize his shoulder injury to get a deal done to come off of that second franchise tag. So we've seen things get ugly. But this had a different tone the longer it went forward. So here we are, like you said, Kyle, the whispers around the building over the past couple of days were growing in that this was a possibility, and then it started to inch towards likelihood. And even then it was still difficult to fathom that the Cowboys would actually pull the trigger on this. Yeah. But here we are, the trigger is pulled, and Brian Schottenheimer is simply hoping that this doesn't turn into an extinction-level event in his first year as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, talk about this for your first year as an NFL head
welcome
coach.
To the Cowboys.
Before his first game as
welcome
an NFL
to the job, and a week ahead of his first game
against the Super Bowl champions.
Against the reigning Super Bowl champions. So the timing on this is what makes it really unfortunate, I think, for everybody, because now you've got, reportedly the trade was for Kenny Clark, the Pro Bowl defensive tackle. Yeah. And he's got now less than a week to ingrain himself into Matt Eberflus's scheme in this defense. And Micah Parsons, who hasn't practiced at all since who knows when, he's been training on his own, now has to go to Green Bay, and it's going to take some time to ramp back up. So this has been such a fascinating, interesting, weaving road that you always kind of felt, and I always kind of felt, really only the last couple of days was I really considering the chance that something like this could happen. I think it's safe to say, in my opinion, and I'm not speaking for anybody else except for myself, that this is one of, if not the most shocking trade in NFL history. Just because you always felt like everything that was going on was a negotiation tactic to get to a point where the Cowboys would extend Micah Parsons, make him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. And even, some of the buzz about a potential trade, you felt like, hey, maybe that's just trying to, they say deadlines make deals. Maybe that's just trying to push that forward. And here we are. It's come a long way since that conversation in March that you mentioned, Patrick, where Jerry Jones said that he and Micah Parsons had talked out just about everything that came with the deal. And Parsons wanted to get his agent involved, as a lot of players, really most players do. And
that's what you pay him for.
Jerry Jones didn't want to move off of the agreement that they had, and here we are. And now Micah Parsons goes to the Green Bay Packers, and we've got a big red circle on week 4 of the 2025 calendar when the Green Bay Packers come to Dallas on Sunday Night Football, appropriately, standalone game.
Of course.
And Parsons returns to face his now former team.
They sell any tickets for that game yet?
If they did, they're gone.
Look, when you mention Schottenheimer, I used to tell Jason Garrett this all the time when things like, but not to this extent, but things would happen, and I'd say, so you wanted to be a head coach, didn't you? And welcome to being a head coach, Brian Schottenheimer. All right, so I learned my lesson during in '89 when the Cowboys traded Herschel Walker.
Okay.
And they didn't divulge all the details immediately on what the trade was. Mm-hmm. And we kind of panned the trade, and then we found out a couple days later that part of the trade was not the 5 players, but the draft choices that were attached to the 5 players. So I would like to see, number one, not the agent's numbers, the real numbers that get filed with the NFL. And number two, is there anything more than Kenny Clark? Because I wrote down this morning when we were talking about it, I wrote down 2 first-round picks and 2 starters.
Yeah.
So I'm one starter.
You're almost there.
I'm one starter short.
You got to find one more.
Somebody else got to be thrown in
Pay
this
up,
thing.
Green Bay.
But think about it this way. So from the Cowboys' standpoint, it's not like a deal that knocked your socks off, right? So they must have wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't like, oh, we gave you 4 first-round picks. It's 2 first-round picks, and they're not in the same year, so you don't get to, reap the benefits of the trade until 2027.
Yeah.
And where is those picks going to be?
Exactly.
If they end up being legitimate.
Because Green Bay was already
a Super Bowl contender
contending,
now.
Yeah.
And now, arguably, they've gotten better.
Yep.
We'll see what that, how that transpires in the record in the postseason. But I mean, if these 2 first-round picks end up being 30, 31, 32, one of the
that's second rounder.
That's basically a second rounder,
right?
So, in the voice of Josh Rodriguez, what are we doing here? If it turns out to be that, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So to me, and Ambar wanted a quick answer what I thought of this, and I said, I think we need to ask the question: did you really want to keep Micah Parsons? Mm-hmm. And it sounds like from the negotiations, they had to be hesitant to sign him to a long-term deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that difficult, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing I was telling people all the time was, everybody said, well, we know what the number is, because this is what's going to make him the highest paid. It's going to be $41 million a year. And I said, well, how do you know they're not asking for 50? Mm-hmm. Well, 47.
A number's pretty high.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, we got to see, because there's 2 different numbers out there for the guarantee. Right. One's 120 at signing, one's 136.
Yeah,
right?
Those are the 2.
So there's some funny things in there. So I want to see the rest of the deal, but I didn't want to ask the question to Jerry in front of everybody, but I wanted to know, do you really want to keep him?
Yeah.
But that's an excellent point, and not entirely dissimilar was the Amari Cooper situation. So although they had already paid Amari Cooper, they gave him the $100 million contract, but thereafter things as far as the relationship between the organization and Amari Cooper, it deteriorated to the point where so many of us as analysts and Cowboys fans alike, they were like, well, why would you even entertain moving off of Amari Cooper? And at that point, Amari Cooper was still arguably peak. Okay, so he was still definitely
Still
one
a
of
good
the best
player.
route runners, and he was still a contributor at a high level. But to Mickey's point, if the Cowboys came to the determination with Micah Parsons, similar to what they came to the determination with Amari Cooper, and just said, you know what, we could keep you around, we could pay you, we just don't want you here anymore. And if that's the case, then that explains them pulling the trigger and sending him away, not only away, but to an NFC team, and not only an NFC team, but one that is a contender, and also one that's been a thorn in your ass.
Yeah.
They haven't,
Especially in the
long
playoffs.
time.
they haven't lost at AT&T Stadium yet.
Ever. Yeah.
So, and now they have Micah Parsons.
And now they have Micah Parsons when they come back here week 4.
Well, there was a point when they never beat Green Bay in Green Bay also.
There's a time there, too.
I lived it.
The storylines and the layers to this whole thing, because like you said, this is all reading tea leaves. I'm wondering how much transparency we'll receive now that it's done, now that it's over with and the saga has come to a close. Because over the next few days when Brian Schottenheimer speaks, I know Jerry Jones probably is around the corner. He's probably got a radio hit coming up in the next couple of days going into week 1. Either way, there's going to be conversations to the media about this. And how, is it going to be transparent, or is it going to be a smokescreen of, oh, we felt one way about this guy, we felt another way about this guy, we felt comfortable taking the return, and we couldn't say no? I think that's probably the more likely scenario.
Well, think about this. How many times have we heard, or Jerry point out, we have 3 years of control on him,
yeah.
right? So to me, I don't think it was the money. I think they were hesitant to pay him a long-term deal with a signing bonus that large.
And to build off of that, back in March when we talked to him at the owners' meetings, it was April 1st, excuse me, when we talked to him at the owners' meetings, he was talking about how, hey, look, if we're going to pay Micah Parsons this lump sum of money, then we need to see more from him as a leader. And you define leadership however you'd like to define it. Everybody's different, right? Everybody has a different leadership style. Some guys are just natural at it. Some guys aren't really leaders, and that's okay. And I think that, building off of what you said, Patrick, what you said, Mickey, I would think it's safe to say that part of this has to do with, maybe there's there's maybe people that just don't think that Parsons showed enough of what they wanted from a leadership standpoint.
Think about the lasting impact here. Think about what his final image as a Cowboy will ultimately be for Cowboys fans in the front office.
I know where you're going with this.
It was him laying on the table.
Should I get
It was
down?
that's the lasting impact. That's not necessarily what Micah Parsons was to this organization. I mean, you look at the numbers, you look at the film, they both tell a story that he is one of the best edge rushers in the National Football League, and he has a chance to be one of the greatest to ever play this game. Plain and simple. The numbers and the stats and the film, they all say that. But when you have that as the lasting impact, I'm wondering if that was the straw that broke the back and took this thing to a new level.
And
it wasn't the only thing.
It was
not the only
thing, because there are certainly people in the locker room like Trayvon Diggs, amongst others.
That's another
that
layer to this.
have respect for Micah Parsons and that love Micah Parsons as a teammate and as a football player. No question, Kyle. I mean, this guy's one of the best in the league.
Yeah.
It's not, he has potential, like you said, to be one of the best pass rushers of all time. He and Reggie White are the only two defensive ends in NFL history who have 12 sacks in their first 4 years of football. The guy's 26 years old. So
where did Reggie White play for those?
I was going to say, you just made my point. The Cowboys just gave the Green Bay Packers
another Reggie White.
They just gave them a new.
And he might be better. He might end up being better.
It's got a long way to go.
Oh my God! What a move by the Green Bay Packers. Hate to give them credit for that, but man, they pulled that off.
Oh, you have
Did they fly him in for an MRI?
I don't remember. I don't know where he flew. I don't know where he went.
What happened to the bad back?
Maybe the second opinion came back clean also.
$48 million helps a Band-Aid.
But and I'll say this too. You look at you guys mentioned the Herschel Walker trade earlier. That was 5 total draft picks, if I'm remembering correctly.
No, it was more 5.
More than 5.
Five players.
There was never going to be another Herschel Walker trade.
No,
right? There was never going to be anything like that. I look at. Then the terms are now official, by the way. The Cowboys get defensive tackle Kenny Clark, 3-time Pro Bowler, 2026 first, 2027 first for Micah Parsons. And again, I'm speaking for myself here. I think Parsons is worth more than that. I think.
Sure.
Well, if I'm talking in my opinion,
Yeah.
I know Micah Parsons is worth more than that. I'm
Well-
not saying that it's completely fleeced or anything like that. That term 2 first-round picks is very valuable.
I want to be very clear here. I agree with you when it comes to X's and O's, but remember, you're not taking on a single dollar of that contract.
Absolutely.
Now, Green Bay has to turn around and pay him. And they're okay with doing that. They're cool with doing that. That's part of why this happened.
You should have been okay with it.
You should have been. I agree. We're on the same page here. But just remember, that's a part of this trade, too.
No, it
Not
is.
only are they having to give up 2 first-round picks and a Pro Bowl-type defensive tackle, which I don't even want to bring Clark into this, and I feel bad for Kenny Clark.
Right, because he's always going to be tied.
He's going to be tied to this for the rest of his
really
career.
good player.
Hopefully, he'll turn out to be.
He's been a very good player in his career.
Yes, coming off of a down year, but still a really good player overall. I think when it comes to this whole scenario, the contract played a huge part of that.
And
you don't
rightfully
have
so.
to pay a single dollar of that. You have that salary cap. Maybe it opens up the possibility for more moves down the line. Who knows? I know there's a lot of Cowboys fans out there rolling their eyes.
So let's okay.
But it all plays in a different factor.
So and I will give the Cowboys credit for being far more active in this past spring as they try to set up the roster for Schottenheimer over last year when they
that was the exception,
virtually
though,
did
not the rule.
Exactly. Yeah. That being the exception. Yes, you free up the $24 million that you would have had fully guaranteed for Micah Parsons. That, to my calculation, gives you roughly around $44 million in salary cap space right now. Yes, you can roll over that unused portion for the 2026 free agency, so forth and so on. That sounds great unless you don't do anything with it. And that is typically been the normality here, right? Whereas the Cowboys are not typically, if at all, active in free agency. So yeah, if you walk around with $45 million in salary cap space, but it's just burning a hole in your pocket, then what do you have the space for? I will also counter that no one on this roster. Now, this isn't to say a guy like Donovan Ezra, who doesn't have a high ceiling. We talked about it this morning when we were rating the positions. Talking Cowboys, shameless plug. I believe he has a high ceiling. I believe Marshawn Nealon has a high ceiling. We know what Dante Fowler can be coming off of a career season. We're waiting to see what Sam Williams can be. Will he need a grace period coming off of that torn ACL? We don't know. But when you look at this defensive end room without Micah Parsons, there's no one on this roster right now that will give you what Micah Parsons gives you. What were those numbers that you just said? Comparable to Reggie White.
Yeah, comparable to Reggie White. But
is there anyone on this roster you see that can do that?
The only one
right
that
now,
but possibly get there is Donovan Ezra,
and that's probably a year 2 conversation. Year 3, maybe.
That's an astronomical ask,
right?
Absolutely,
and unfair to the rookie.
1,000
beyond unfair. And here's the thing: I've talked about all season, and we all collectively have said it. The Cowboys' pass rushing unit is very deep. But they were very deep because they had Micah Parsons at the forefront of it. And when you have a player of that caliber, he's going to make things so much easier for everybody around you to get to the quarterback because of the attention that he gets. Now, you think about this too. From a numbers standpoint, if you don't think the numbers marry that, since 2021, in expected points per play on the defensive side of the ball, the Cowboys were first in the league with Micah Parsons on the field. When he wasn't, they were dead last. If one player is making that big of an impact,
it's not even a middle ground.
There's no middle ground. If one player is making that big of an impact, then
why did they do it? They didn't have to.
No, they didn't have to.
They didn't have to.
They wanted.
They had the cards.
I completely understand. I think there is a level of they wanted to. You're right, and I think financially you look at it. Think about the other thing too. The other of the 567 layers that are on this. You've got. Let's talk about the guys that are coming up for extensions here soon.
Well, they can get them now.
Thank you, Mickey.
You like to think.
Deron Bland, Brandon Aubrey, Tyler Smith, George Pickens, who has the same agent as Micah Parsons, by the way, and David Mulligetta. And so that's 4 guys that are going to be key players for you this year. That are going to be up for money this year. Now, I don't think any of them are going to reach Micah Parsons' level of money. So maybe they look ahead and say, we'd rather have these 4 guys instead of 1. And I'm not here to tell you what's right and what's wrong. I'm just telling you what.
But they probably are.
But
they're looking at how many players can I get for one guy.
Of course they are. But of all the names you just mentioned that are up for contract extensions, only one is going to reset the market at his position. It's Tyler Smith. Right, and that's I could argue.
If he continues,
if he has another season,
the kicker.
Yeah, he's going to reset his
Well,
market.
yeah,
that's fair. That's fair. Brandon Aubrey. Brandon Aubrey's going to reset it, but there are levels. There are levels to resetting markets at positions. Okay, so Brandon Aubrey, you're right, Mickey. Brandon Aubrey resetting the kicker market. It's not quite the same as defensive end and offensive guard and offensive tackle, but so yes, Mickey's right. They're looking at it as okay. Well, instead of paying Micah Parsons, we can pay 3 or 4 guys. Here's the problem with that philosophy: is it's continually not paid off for you as far as postseason wins are concerned.
Yeah.
It's a philosophy the Cowboys have carried for a very, very long time. And how long has it been since you've been to that promised land again? 30 years. Okay? So at a certain point, and this isn't to say that they haven't recently paid, because they paid Dak, they paid CD, okay? They paid Jake Ferguson to a lesser degree, paid Trayvon Diggs. So they're willing to pay guys, but typically the guys they're willing to pay are coming in less than market resetters, with the exception being Dak. And CD was kind of like dollars to donuts type.
Sure.
Thing. But at a certain point, when are you going to concede to the possibility that getting 3 or 4 good to slightly above average guys is not equivalent or better than getting one planet shifting talent? Not so long ago, and I'm gonna throw it to you. Not so long ago, you guys remember, right? The Cowboys could not get after the quarterback.
No.
Absolutely couldn't.
No.
It was DeMarcus Lawrence and who else? Especially isn't post DeMarcus Ware era.
It was Randy Gregory.
Randy Gregory, and then that didn't work out. Okay,
it didn't work out.
Jerry Jones was the very individual who said he was looking for. He coined the phrase "war daddy."
Yeah.
He said, "I'm looking for a war daddy. I'd give up a limb to find a war daddy that's generational, et cetera, et cetera." You just had one, and you just sent him to Green Bay.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here just for a second. Not because this is completely all good, and I agree with you. I still think Micah
alternate
Parsons,
points.
This is just an alternate point.
Alternate points.
You talk about how things haven't worked in the past, right? And how they haven't turned into postseason wins because you continue to re-sign your guys. Part of the downfall of continuing to re-sign your guys is you have to rely on what? Young draft picks. Young guys that have rookie contracts, and they've drafted well. Let's give them the credit where credit is due.
Clay and that scouting department.
It hasn't been perfect, but they've drafted
well. Of course not,
well.
but it's pretty spectacular.
If you're able to marry those contracts, the guys that you do believe in and you have seen be established in the league, Tyler Smiths, the George Pickens, the
CD
Lambs, the Dak Prescott, these guys together with a multitude of picks, which they are going to have. Remember the last 2 times they've selected twice in the first round? 2008, which didn't necessarily work out a ton. Who did they take? Felix Jones and Mike Jenkins. But then the one before that, in 2005, they took a guy named DeMarcus Ware and another guy named Marcus Spears.
Yeah.
So it can work.
If you had them in the same year.
If you have them in the same year.
They're not.
It can work.
That's really the
but that's got to be their thought process here. Is maybe we are trying to, as a Cowboys organization, speaking on their behalf, maybe they're trying to do something different. And this is their shot at doing it. I know it's not what people want to hear. And at the end of the day, Micah Parsons is gone and he is in Green Bay. And we're just going to, as Cowboys fans, have to look at that and deal with it. But right now, what you're going to do next is what's going to define whether this was the right move or the wrong move. And I agree with you, Patrick. You have to supplement that with the salary cap, with draft picks, and with re-signing the guys that are worth being re-signed. And at this point in time, they don't feel like Micah Parsons was there.
Or the reason why they don't trust him.
Sure.
And I'll add this too. I think if you are trying to find some sort of, I understand that for Cowboys fans and really Dallas area sports fans in general,
this is twice in a year.
Over the past year, it's been tough, and I think tough is maybe putting it lightly. Will McClay and this scouting staff are one of the better ones in the league, if not the best one in the league. You just look at their recent track record, right? Everybody's got their misses here and there, right? Sure. You just naturally do. You can't go without it. But the level that they've hit on has been so much better than so many more organizations around the league. Now, that said, you got to go out and do it, like you said, Kyle. You have to go out and hit it. part of the reason why the Herschel Walker trade worked out so well for the Cowboys is because they hit 3 home runs at least
Grand
with them.
slam.
But what the bottom line was, they had so many draft picks they could miss, and it didn't show up because they didn't hit on all those picks.
Right. Well, that's what
They had a 3rd-round pick
Yeah.
that didn't even make it out of training camp.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's
When
the
you
point,
got the
though.
volume, then not every pick is so important.
Well, they have 2 first-round picks in 26 and 2 first-round picks in 26.
Right.
So
Exactly.
there's a lot on the table for them in the way that they've been
And you
drafting
can
recently.
trade and get as high as you want to get whoever you want.
Correct.
Because you could say, well, I'm going to package 2 first-round picks now, and I want to get that guy in the top 10.
Right. And you can do that, or you can take a 2nd or a 3rd-round pick and try to move up in the 1st if you've got a guy that you really like. And so
Maybe you need a quarterback. If, let's say, God forbid, Dak Prescott doesn't work out in 2025, and you need to go get a quarterback. You've got the capital to do that now.
Mm-hmm.
You have the capital to go draft a quarterback.
or a pass rusher.
Or a pass rusher, or go
Or
get
a
you
pass
one.
rusher.
But,
Yeah, I mean,
but that's the one that
no, you're
hurts
right.
because even if they go and draft a really good pass rusher, is it going to be up to the level of Micah
Exactly.
Parsons?
Exactly.
Probably not.
Well, it kind of reminds you of the 98 draft when they passed on Randy Moss along with 20 other teams and took Greg Ellis. Yeah. And Greg Ellis had a fine career the rest of his, for 10, 12 years. But everybody always compared it to Randy Moss.
Yeah.
He wasn't Randy Moss. And Randy Moss didn't get drafted to the 21st pick, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys were at 8, I believe.
For every TJ Watt or for every Micah Parsons, there's a Taco Charlton and a TJ Watt scenario. That's just the draft in general.
Right. It happens.
Now that we've kind of hit that, that's what's next. We talked about what's happened here. I just want to close this out here by saying why or how did we get to this point? How did we get here? I keep circling back to the August 1st trade request when we were on the tennis courts in Oxnard, California, getting ready for training camp practice, and all of a sudden, actually, it wasn't even a practice that day; it was an off day, and the post comes out on X. Micah Parsons requests a trade, and like Tommy mentioned at the beginning of the show, I think all of us collectively said it's part of negotiations. It's part of this whole scenario, this whole process. I don't think that was necessarily an empty thought process from that point forward. And I think there were real feelings both on the Micah Parsons side and on the front office side. There were real feelings of either frustration or discontent between one side or the other that led us to this point. What do you believe, Tommy?
I believe what you just said. I think that, we said it was, this is part of the negotiation because we've seen it twice already this offseason. Terry McLaurin and Myles Garrett, both of them got extended. And, that we thought, okay, this is just the same thing with Micah Parsons. The Cowboys have taken a long time, later than some other teams, to get their star players signed. You just saw it last year with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. It seemed like everything was going just like things had gone in the past, and things were going the same. I think the fact that there was no communication between both sides after that initial meeting in March rubbed Micah Parsons the wrong way. And in part rubbed Jerry Jones the wrong way because he thought they had an agreement. Parsons thought it was a conversation about leadership and not a negotiation. They never saw eye to eye to that. And ultimately, that was the hurdle they could never get over.
And then he went out and watched practice.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be here, but he went out and watched all those practices. Why did he do that?
He's scouting for week 4.
Why was he out there doing conditioning work the other day, right? Bad back, but he was doing conditioning work.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be here, but I'm going to come out and stand on the sideline for all these preseason games. Why didn't he go? Because he didn't want a chance getting fined, right? It came down to money.
That's all it was.
So, and this whole leadership thing, he had 3 months of leadership in his entire career here.
Yeah.
Because he was not a leader before that, right? And I'll guarantee you there's people in this building that are applauding this.
Sure.
Just almost like good riddance.
There's people in the fan base. It's not the majority.
Not the fans. I'm talking
I know.
This building.
I understand that completely. But from the fan base, there's a split. It's not a majority split on the good riddance side. That is not the split that I'm seeing. But there is a split. There are people out there that are happy with this deal and that are happy that.
So here's my question to those individuals. It's just a very simple question. Feel free to drop your answer in the chat. No, it's really a simple question. All things considered, we're talking about subjectiveness on what you define leadership as versus what you don't define leadership as. Was he on the sideline because he didn't want to be fined, which I believe is true? Was that solely the reason, or did he also really have the camaraderie with his locker room? You saw the camaraderie show itself on social media when he demanded the trade and things started to go south. Guys were changing their avies. Defensive players were changing their avies in solidarity for Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
All of that's true. Trevon Diggs and how he feels about Micah, all of that's true. Simply put, are the Cowboys better right now on August 28th without Micah Parsons on the roster?
No. Absolutely not.
All right. Then, because I'm of the mindset of, and maybe this is the super competitor in me, okay? The super competitor in me says, if we're teammates, as long as you're doing your job and we can be civil and we're winning games, I don't have to like you. I just want to win. I want to win. And as long as we can coexist, I don't need to come to your daughter's graduation. Shouts out to her, but I don't need to come there. You don't need to come to my cookout, right? But if we can win and coexist, then that's all I require because I'm trying to win. Anything short of that becomes pride getting in the way of the main thing. And at a certain point, you got to ask yourself, are you still keeping the main thing the main thing?
The main thing right now is the main storyline, and that this is done.
Main thing should be a Super Bowl.
It is done. And Micah Parsons is no longer a Dallas Cowboy. The Cowboys will have to try and replace him as soon as Thursday, September 4th, against one team that's up in Philadelphia that won a Super Bowl just a couple months ago with some really good play. Where on their defense?
Defensive line.
From their front seven.
Well, now they got somebody to stop the run.
And now they got somebody to stop the
Hopefully.
run. Kenny Clark, he's a good player. Don't hate on Kenny Clark.
No, that's what I mean.
Don't hate on Kenny Clark.
Unfortunately, like you talked about, Kenny Clark can come in and he can be a very solid
He's Anthony
starter.
Davis in this situation.
Right, but unfortunately, or no, because Anthony Davis can't stay healthy and Kenny Clark actually can.
Hopefully. Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. But Kenny Clark, I would urge everyone to kind of try to mentally not attach Kenny Clark's productivity or whatever he does on the field to Micah. But realistically speaking, human psychology dictates he will always be tied to the Micah Parsons trade. And unless he goes out there and has a Hall of Fame season, Kenny Clark does,
then you can tell.
There's going to be a lot of fans that they're going to say that was insufficient. And that's fine because I actually agree with Mickey in that this haul just wasn't enough for me. And that's not a knock to Kenny Clark. I just expected more for a player of the caliber of Micah Parsons.
Well, don't you think
there's no kitchen sink here? Where's my kitchen sink?
Considered that though?
Where's my kitchen sink?
They're at least as smart as us, right?
Who?
What we've said down the hallway,
yeah,
right? So they didn't have to do this.
No,
there was no gun to their head to do this.
They wanted to,
and they went ahead and did it, right?
Yeah.
So why?
There's a reason. Before we go, last thing, very quickly, one word. Is this the second most polarizing trade in Cowboys history behind only the Herschel Walker trade, Patrick?
Yes.
Mickey? Is there one that stands out?
I almost
in your
said
mind?
Roy Williams, wide receiver, but I'm going to say
no. Since then, because they didn't want Herschel Walker.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's what you're saying about Micah.
Well, then is it a polarizing trade, or did they do what they wanted to do?
Maybe.
I would like them to answer that
to the
question.
general public,
right?
To the general public.
To the general public.
Then
From a shock.
Yeah, this is the Luka trade to the
Yes.
I mean, you had a team on its way to 1-15, and you had one Pro Bowl player basically, and you said, "Okay, I'm going to trade him," and then you got multiple Pro Bowl players out of the trade.
Yeah, but now you only got 2 picks, and they might be in the 20s or later.
Right, exactly. And the thing on that one was they didn't come clean on what the trade was until 2 or 3 days later. So the whole thing on the Netflix thing about we got these guys.
Let's keep adding guys.
we got these
not
guys.
done yet.
They had no nobody had a clue what they had done.
What do you think, Tommy?
Yes.
I think so too. All right, that does it for us. Catch Tommy, catch Patrick on Talking Cowboys with myself tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We're going to talk more about it. I had a game lined up. That's not going to happen tomorrow. We'll do that later. We've got a lot more.
Mick Shots at noon.
I'm getting there, Mickey. Mick Shots at noon with Bill Jones and Everson Walls and Heckma Harrison. They'll have it breaking down too. Be sure to join us throughout all of tomorrow's podcasts here on DallasCowboys.com. More to come, I'm sure. There's a lot going on. There's still more unwinding. But the bottom line, Micah Parsons traded to the Green Bay Packers for 2 first-round picks, one in 26, one in 27, and Kenny Clark, defensive tackle, on his way to Dallas. Thanks for watching the Cowboys Nation podcast. We'll see you next time.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this,